Welcome to the second segment of a two-part interview with the Tacos4Life manager, Miss Kaitlyn Osborn. When we left last time, Kaitlyn had given some insight into how she saw Tacos4Life impact Swaziland and Honduras. Kaitlyn, what is one part of your experiences that you would ultimately not trade for anything?
One thing that's been really cool is just learning and hearing actual stories from Swaziland. Now that we have a store in Fayetteville, actual stories from Honduras about the difference that food makes in a community.
After hearing the stories of some of the kids in Swaziland, are there any that have just stayed with you? Do you have any stories that you will remember forever?
Yeah, I do. I met a little girl. Her name is Candy. She is 11 years old. She's in about the 5th grade, and she was very excited because she had just taken her end of the year finals or semester tests, and she came back and she was in the top 25% of her class, and she was very excited because she thought that that might mean that she would get to go on to the 6th grade. The educational system in Swaziland is very backwards, and there are certain years of school that are free, but then they have huge uniform fees. So sometimes kids don't get to go because they can't afford a new uniform, or just things like that that we don't really have to deal with here in the States. But I got to meet Candy, and she is the oldest of 3 children. Both of her parents are working, but they usually don't have enough money to pay for food for all of the kids to eat every day. So she and her siblings come to the Care Point in Swaziland, and she gets a meal there every day after school, even though she said she usually doesn't get to eat lunch at school. She at least knows that she's going to eat dinner because she gets to go to the Care Point and get food there. But Candy was so vivacious. She was a firecracker. She loved math and science. I asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up, and she said that she wanted to be the first president of Swaziland.
Oh, wow.
Swaziland actually has a king right now, and they've never had a president. But I asked her why she wanted to be president, and she said so that she could put an end to the injustices of Swaziland, that more people could have food, that they could have access to medical care, and that they would get to go to school. And I was just thinking, when I was in 5th grade, I'm pretty sure that I still wanted to be a princess or an astronaut. I wasn't thinking about social injustices. And so it was amazing to me just to see the maturity and the professionalism that she carried herself with as an 11-year-old. But then, I also got to hear more about her family and how she likes to read the Bible with her grandma, even though neither her mom or her dad like to go to church at all. And that she does a Bible study with the kids in her neighborhood, and that she goes to church with them. So even though she's 11, she's really a woman in some ways, that she's leading her younger siblings, and she's setting an example for them, and she's making up her mind now about what's important to her as a person, and what kind of character she wants to develop, and what kind of influence she wants to exert on those around her. So it was super inspiring to meet Candy because she was just so full of life. She sang songs for me, and we played on the playground. But the more I talked to her, the more I just fell in love with her sweet spirit. Another story is actually about the founders of Tacos4Life, Ashton and Austin. They went to Swaziland in 2013, and they met a little boy who was 5, and his name was Sanaliso. And he was shy, but he had such a sweet smile, and he was really frail. And when they picked him up, they could just tell that he was malnourished, and he just wanted to cling to them, and he just wanted affection, and he wanted to be loved. But when they went back in 2015, when I went with them, they saw Sanaliso again, and he's 2 years older. He's 7. He was super outgoing. He looked healthy. He was helping the younger kids as they stood in line. He was making sure that they got their food first. And he was answering questions during the Bible study, and he was laughing, and he was just so full of energy. And they just really got to see that over the course of 2 years, that Sanaliso he was growing, and not just physically, but as a person. And that was really encouraging for them to see that the same kids are coming back to their care points, that they're really learning, that they're really making relationships, and this just isn't a temporary thing for most kids. It's life changing, and it's the source of nourishment for their bodies, but also for their spirits. Another story that I heard was about a girl who was 12, and she just lived with her mom. It was just the two of them, and her mom had a job, and she only made enough money for the two of them to eat. So this little girl kind of figured out that she wasn't going to be able to go to school. But then someone told them about the care point nearby where they could get food for this girl. So the mom decided to take her there once, and they realized that if she could eat there every day, then they would have enough money for her to go to school. And so she started going to school, and then she would go to the care point at 4 o'clock after school to eat for the day. So she also was not eating lunch at school, and she said that the other girls would make fun of her, and that they would tell her that she was poor and that she didn't have enough money and that she wasn't going to amount to anything, and she just said that she didn't have any friends. And she said this with tears in her eyes. She felt so alone and that no one wanted to be her friend because she went to school all day and everyone made fun of her. And then she would come to the care point and she felt like she was older than most of the kids and that she didn't fit in and that she just didn't have any friends. But Ashton, one of the founders of Tacos4Life, just looked her right in the eyes and she said, "I'm your friend. I love you. And you know that there are people here who love you." And she was pointing out to the teachers and to the ladies who cooked the food. And she said, "You know that these people care about you. And I want you to know that. And I want you to never forget that. Because they love you and they want the best for you. And you're going to continue to make friends as you grow up. I know that this is rough. I know that school is hard. It's hard for a lot of people, even in America, for different reasons. But you are going to grow up and you're going to be a woman of influence. And this is just a season, but it's going to pass." And the little girl just hugged her, just crying, just because you could tell that she was just looking for that connection, just for someone to listen to her and to just express value over her life and just to point out all the great things about her. And Ashton got to be that person just for a brief moment at the care point. So there are just plenty of stories like that, just of kids who just feel abandoned, they feel alone, whether that's because they're orphans or because they only have one parent, or they feel estranged by their parents, or they're begging for food, or they're not in school, or they are in school but they feel like they don't have any friends. It can be any number of things that can just make these kids feel so alone and give them just little to no direction. So yeah, it was just amazing to see the gap that the care points are filling in the lives of these kids. But they're not just supplemental for a lot of kids. This is all they have. It's the backbone and the foundation of what's shaping their character and what's shaping their future.
How have you taken the stories you've heard and the kids you've talked to and allowed them to impact your work in the restaurant?
I think that one thing that just keeps striking me is the thought that even if we can't do everything, we can do something. There's a proverb, I think it's from Nepal or Tanzania, but it says, "Little by little, a little becomes a lot." And I think that what that proverb is saying is that maybe one person can't change the world, but one person can change another person's life. And it's really just a small rock in the river that can create a ripple. And I think that that's what Tacos4Life is doing, is that just one taco at a time, we're just raising meals and just trying to see childhood malnutrition come to an end. And what's so cool about that is that any given meal could be a life-saving meal. The restaurants just passed their million meal count. So that's a really big celebration for us. But we want to be able to celebrate 1 million meals way more frequently than that. We want to see the numbers rise. We want to have more restaurants so that we can continue to feed more kids. One thought that my boss had was that what if McDonald's did what we did? What if for every burger that they sold, they donated a meal to a hungry child? Well, wouldn't that kind of solve the problem? Wouldn't that kind of end world hunger? And we thought about it, and we just realized what we want to do is achievable. The number of meals that we want to raise, that's possible to do. There are other restaurants out there that have enough stores and have enough business that if they had adopted this model, that would be it. Childhood hunger could be over. So it seems like a huge goal to say that, just by selling tacos that we could really make a dent in world hunger. But the more that you think about it, it's totally attainable. One of my favorite writers, Jack Kerouac, he said that the people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who actually do. And that's how I feel kind of about just the vision and the people behind Tacos4Life, is that it's a really big dream, just to want to see the day when none are hungry. But that's something that's worth fighting for, and that's something that's worth going to work and putting in long hours for, is because it's bigger than me. And it's just fun to get to be a small part of that puzzle of what God is doing in the world. That, maybe today I went to work and all I did was make some cheese dip and fry some chips. But that's so that there are kids in Swaziland who can eat. So it's just cool to see that God can take something like a taco restaurant in Central Arkansas, and he can change kids' lives in Africa because of that. So it's crazy, and it's super fun. It's really an adventure, and it's something that I'm so grateful to be a part of.